Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and today we're going to be talking about content in video games. Something that I'm calling content insatiable, which is what I believe many people have become in terms of video games. Now, this whole conversation is something that I've been crafting for well over a year now. In fact, it was a conversation that I started to craft back in the days of Destiny, when Destiny was getting a lot of complaints, people claiming it didn't have enough content. Meanwhile, I'm watching people on my friends list and people I know in other gaming communities racking up thousands of hours in Destiny and then claiming that the game was lacking content. Now, I have a big theory as to why this is the perception of at least the vocal minority. But I want to preface all of this with a specific comment that was left on one of Force Gaming's videos, Force Strategy Gaming's videos, Dennis's videos. He did a video earlier today called "Why Aren't Gamers Having Fun?" Now, he's not actually saying that he's one of those people not having fun. What he's actually saying is he doesn't understand why people aren't having fun, because he still is very much having fun. And I've always enjoyed Force, and I've always supported his channel because his opinions fall in line with mine. I should say the way that we look at video games falls in line with one another. Him and I are both people who still thoroughly enjoy video games, who can't comprehend why so many people have such an ultra-cynical and negative approach to gaming, because we're still loving a lot of the games we're playing. In fact, we're still loving almost all of the games that we end up playing. So that was the point of discussion for his video. Now, one of the higher rated comments with 57 thumbs up was from this fellow right here who said, "The reason that gamers aren't having fun is there's not enough content. Prime example, Halo 5. Now, there's about a million things wrong with this comment. Number one, it makes me kind of physically ill that actually is a correlation and a belief as to why people aren't having fun. And then the fact that 57 other people actually thumbs that up. Now, I'm a strong believer in the vocal minority. And the fact is, gaming is an extremely accessible hobby. More and more people are playing video games every single day. So while it may seem like the vocal minority is increasing, I'd like to think that it's remaining just that, the vocal minority. And we'll get into the fact that Halo 5 is probably one of the most content-rich games you can play in just a little bit. But let's talk a little bit about my theory, right? We live in a society where binging, overindulgence is not just accepted, it's in many ways like promoted. How many people know someone or possibly are that person who is a-okay with binge watching like entire seasons of television shows on Netflix? It's practically an internet meme, it's like it's everywhere. People are okay with that idea. I'm sorry, I never have been and I never will be. I don't believe in overindulgence. Number one, it dulls the overall and enjoyment and value of whatever that subject is, whether it's a piece of entertainment, a food, a hobby, an activity. Overindulgence dulls those things. It doesn't matter how good it is. That's just the way the human brain works. Secondly, if a friend comes up to me who, at this point, most of my friends are the same age as me, and they tell me that they spent the entire weekend watching something like LA Inc., I'm going to be actually kind of disappointed with them. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to say, dude, we're at a point in our lives where we need to be looking, what are we going to do? What are we going to do to make sure that we can cement our happiness and, just a sense of constant growth and success throughout the rest of our lives? And I can guarantee you that the chances of that coming from binge watching LA Inc. are very slim. So I would be disappointed. But that's something that society has made acceptable. It's socially acceptable to tell people that you binge watched and wasted an entire weekend watching a television show. Now, who's to say that games are exempt from that mentality? They're not. And I see it. I see it with people I know. I see it with people that I talk to in person in real life, that people binge on games way too freaking hard. And again, it's such an accessible thing. People like to claim that video games are expensive. We like to whine and complain about them. But compared to other hobbies, it's really affordable. Compared to other forms of entertainment, it's actually still really affordable. Games aren't that expensive, especially when you consider how much it costs to make games. So it's easy for people to overindulge. It's easy for them to develop this false sense that a game doesn't have enough content. And this comment is everything wrong with that. He could not have picked a worse example. Halo 5, number one, at launch, had a full campaign that could be played single player or cooperatively, multiple difficulty modes. It had the return of the classic competitive Halo experience with Arena. It also had Warzone, a less hardcore, large scale experience. Since then, we've already seen free content updates. It has Forge, which is a tool designed entirely to help you make more content. We're going to be seeing the launch of Griffball as well as Firefight in the coming months. Halo 5 is an extremely content-rich experience. They could not have picked a worse example, which is why I don't want to hold a lot of weight or a lot of value to people like this saying this, and I want to, deep down, hold it inside of my soul. My soul is someone who enjoys video games, that most of you think like I do. Most of you are still enjoying games. Most of you recognize that games today have more content than games have ever had in history. The amount of, variety within the way that you can play one individual game today, in most cases, is phenomenal. I mean, you look at Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Regardless of whether or not you like Call of Duty games, you've got an entire campaign, once again, that can be played cooperatively with multiple difficulty modes that actually change the experience. You've got a competitive multiplayer mode that can also be played in custom matches, and you've got an entire zombies experience. And the list just goes on and on. I mean, I could sit here and name games all day long that provide an extremely large amount of content. Like, it's just, games do that these days. A lot of the best games do that. Now, I'm not at all making a defense for games that don't do that. There's no doubt that there are games that actually lack content. But you know what? Those aren't the games that people are playing. Those aren't the games that are racking up millions of dollars of sales and profits and pushing out sequel after sequel after sequel. But I still do hold true the idea that people just consume too much too quickly. And that's why they then feel there's not enough content. Destiny is just, it's one of those killer examples for me, because I know people firsthand who I've gotten into like actual, vocal debates over, who, claiming Destiny doesn't have enough content. And I'm like, dude, I saw you sat there with me and you played like 500 hours of the vanilla game. There's not enough content. You paid $60 and you got 500 hours of playtime. Just because you're jaded because you burned yourself out on it doesn't mean that the game didn't give you enough content. Like, that's the biggest load of Goomba poop I've ever heard in my entire freaking life. And this discussion definitely correlates directly to The Division, because people are already making concerns and claims. What if there's not enough content? What if I can't play The Division for 2+ years? I actually had a comment on one of the Division Weekly videos, which was flagged as spam because the person decided to swear up a storm afterwards. I'm not going to point out their name or even show it to you. I'm not looking to highlight anyone specifically here. But the person said basically that they were going to pick up the Division, and if it didn't give them at least a year's worth of playing. Like, I don't know what they actually meant by that because they were very vague, but I'm assuming they wanted to be able to play the Division for an entire year without ever having to put it down or take a break. And then they went on to say pretty much if they didn't, blah, 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 Ubisoft, I'll never buy your games again, so on and so forth. Like, what an absurd claim and expectation from any game. Unless you're talking about an MMO, which is filled with tons of filler. Like, MMOs are all about the filler grind, right? That's how they produce large amounts, seemingly large amounts of content. Let's fill this massive open world. It lacks detail. It lacks, rich, vibrant environmental design, because we're just going to fill it with a bunch of generic bits and pieces. Like, that's what MMOs are all about. You have a game like The Division, which, like, is so painstakingly crafted that you actually have, one or two people working on one mission. And then there's another 2 or 3 people working on another mission. Like, you have so many people working ridiculous amounts of hours, I imagine, to painstakingly put together and detail this entire world and environment to give it the most amount of life it could possibly have. It's a completely different type of experience. It's one that is putting a lot of value in the detail within the content and the content itself, not just throwing a massive empty open world at you and then filling it with a bunch of filler and grind. So, no, I don't expect to be able to play The Division for an entire year. If I can, good for them. They really pulled it off. They created an insanely, a replayable experience. If I can put 3 months in The Division, I'll be stoked, because I know and I'm able to judge the amount of time that I spend playing games. And I know that in that 3 months, it's not going to be like I played The Division 4 hours every single Saturday. No, I'm probably going to play it at least 2 hours a day. Not to mention how much time I'm going to be putting into it just to create content for the channel. I know for a fact that if I can play The Division for even a month, I'm going to have an insane amount of playtime. Multiple days worth of playtime, more than my money's worth. It's just odd that we expect so much when the issue is too many of us are just consuming far too quickly. We're overindulging, we're binging way too freaking hard, and I don't believe that that is acceptable. And it makes me slightly ill that it's become socially acceptable for that sort of practice. It's no. I mean, you would not go to your favorite restaurant, I've said this so many times before, and just, order 2 servings of your favorite meal every single day. You wouldn't. You'd get sick and tired of it, and at the end of the day, you'd be jaded. You'd feel like it was the most disgusting thing you've ever ate. We've all done that before. We've all overeaten something that we thoroughly enjoy, and you don't want to think about eating it for at least another month. It's the same thing that people are doing day in and day out with games, with entertainment. They just overindulge, they overconsume, and they consume way too rapidly. But regardless of what they say, regardless of what the vocal minority wants to throw up in the air and say the problem with games is, it's the way that they're consuming things. That's the actual problem. Many of us are still having fun. I'm still having fun. I'm not sitting here like waiting for some far off experience that's going to claim to give me 10 to 15 years of playtime. I'm playing games that are releasing right now. I'm playing great games like Rainbow Six Siege, like Halo 5, The Witcher 3, Fallout 4, The Division, hopefully. I'm enjoying these games. I'm still having fun. And you know what? There's more than enough content to go around. Definitely a bit of an almost rant, I guess you could say. Something that I have very strong feelings and opinions about. I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you're still in this hobby, you need to ask yourself, am I just here because it's really accessible? Like, it's so ingrained in society that everybody watches television. I don't actually watch that much television myself. It's an occasional thing I do with the girlfriend. When we just feel like relaxing, we'll sit down. We're trying to catch up on Netflix right now, and we're trying to catch up on the X-Files, which will probably take us forever, and then I may consider starting to watch Battlestar Galactica. But like, it's an automatic, right? Like, everybody just thinks it's okay to continuously indulge things like that. You have to ask yourself, like, gaming shouldn't become like that. I don't think television should be like that. You shouldn't just be consuming television because it's a form of entertainment and you've got nothing better to do. But I do feel that's the way people are treating games right now. They're treating it like we already treat television. They're just consuming it for the sake of consuming it because it's something to do. There's an even bigger discussion about where people need to kind of check their life. Not really here to tell anybody else how to live. But if you're just sitting there blindly consuming entertainment, consuming, as I said in my vlog this past weekend, try and create something. Step back, try and create for once. Don't just consume, produce. And I promise you, your life's going to be completely freaking different. That's it for me, guys. Create something. Really sit down and consider why you play games. And I'll see you in the next one.